This is Open Source Tonight for January the 15th, 2020, and I'm your host, Vincent Maggard, live in studio. And this week, it's a pleasure to be joined by the wonderful Joe Collins of the EzeeLinux project. How you doing today?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, and thank you very much for joining us for today's show. Really greatly appreciated you were able to join us today.
No problem.
So let's start off. Normally we plug people's stuff at the end, but today I feel like let's just do it at both. You're a special guest, so tell them where they can find you online.
Oh, it's real easy. EzeeLinux.com. E-Z as in Z, E-E, Linux.com. And there's links to every other part of the community there. So you can get to the YouTube channel, you can get to the forums there, the Facebook channel. Everything starts with EzeeLinux.com.
All right. And of course, as anyone probably can guess, I definitely endorse EzeeLinux. I think it's a great project, and Joe's a great fellow. I've been watching him for years. So anyway, let's jump into the news for this week. Thanks so much for plugging your stuff. I'm sure you wanted to do that anyway. We're going to jump into the news real quick, and then we got some stuff we're going to talk about. We want to talk about Linux Mint today and snaps. And Joe, you're welcome to hop in and talk about anything else Linux or open source related you want during the show. If you feel like it. So,
alrighty.
All right. So we're going to start off here with our first news story of the week, and that would be the Gnome's new Gnome or Gnome. I like to say it the same way you do Gnome. 3.36 is improved shell theme called, which looks ace. I'm not really sure what they mean by this in the article here, but have you seen the article I'm referencing here, Joe? I think it looks all right.
I tend to go. I run Gnome on Ubuntu, and I just go with the Yaru theme right now. That's what's on my main machine. I like it, which is the Ubuntu community theme.
Yeah.
So I haven't seen the one from Gnome yet, but I'll go check it out.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. It's kind of a dark theme from what I can gather in the screenshots here. There's only a few. I use Gnome 3 right now on Ubuntu as well, but I have a customized version where I got rid of the Ubuntu customizations and used the Gnome Black theme, or the Gnome Dark theme, I should say. That's what it's called. And
Way to Dark?
Yeah, Way to Dark. That's what it is. Yeah,
I know what you're talking about.
I used to use a different theme, but I tried this and I slowly got used to it, and then I'm like, okay, I can use it now.
I gave up on themes about a year or two ago and said, forget it. If I can read it, I'm okay.
Yeah, exactly. That's pretty much where I'm at now, too. Just use the default theme for the desktop. You can stand it. There's so many compatibility issues, right? So, but yeah, so that's that. There's really not too much in this. However, it does say there's a light effect applied when the mouse goes over the skin, the Gnome skin. I don't know what that means. Do you?
I think probably that would be some sort of a highlight that would go by, which is actually something that they need to do. It's a problem that I actually have with Ubuntu right now, is sometimes I lose the cursor. They have a dark cursor with a little white line around it.
Yeah.
Depending on how busy the screen is. Sometimes you go, where's the mouse? You got to jiggle it around and look for it.
Yeah, well, you don't want to have to do that. That's for sure. I think I've lost my mouse on Ubuntu before too, so I'm glad to see I'm not the only one that's done that. But yeah, I think the highlighting is it. I'm looking at the screenshot here. They're showing it's a GIF, playing, and when they hover over a button, it like highlights.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm guessing that's what they mean. But there's really not too much to say about it. I mean, it's a new theme. Check it out. It'll be on the show notes. And the other real big news story today, which is not Linux related, but at least directly, but I felt like we should add it. And that is Microsoft, not that I'm a fan of them, ending support for Windows 7 today. The last good version of Windows, if you ask me.
That was yesterday.
Oh, I'm sorry. That was yesterday. That's right. The article said today, but it was Tuesday.
Well, that's because you're reading it from yesterday, and it depends on where you are in the world anyway.
Exactly. But anyways, Windows 7 support ended yesterday, and so you need to upgrade your machine or take it off the network, whatever you need to do for your environment, or call up...
Anybody who's still using Windows 7 right now is that is one
old
that
system.
Would be a stubborn person.
Yeah.
That's all I got to say. I dumped Windows 7 in 2014. I was like,
almost exactly the same time I did, ironically.
Yeah.
But yeah, I used 7 for a long time. It was a good version, but you're right. If anyone's still on it, they're stubborn. But I don't blame them. I mean, if it works, don't break it, right? You're getting work done on it. You're making your money on it.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not a big fan of official EOL. We're just going to end support on it. But on the flip side of it, I can also see the Microsoft point of view simply because of the fact that they've been supporting it for 11 years.
Yeah.
And it's kind of time to move on and do something different.
I mean, yeah, me and your opinion on this is pretty much identical. As a software developer myself, end of life, so I'm not a big fan of them, but at the same time, I mean, like you said, they've been supporting it for 11 years. They've got Windows 10 now. That's a much newer code base. They really want everybody on Windows 10, which just use Linux, people, if you can. I was going to say that would be a best option for you is just, call up Mr. Joe Collins over here at EzeeLinux. I'll give you a free plug there. Do you still help people set up Linux, or did you stop doing that? I think you stopped doing that,
No, I don't
didn't
do
you?
that anymore. I got to a place, I did that for about 2 or 3 years when I first started. I offered one-on-one support, and then it got crazy, and I got busy, and I was like, I can't do this anymore, and I just don't do it now.
Well, in that case, don't contact Joe, but instead...
Yeah, I mean, I will... it is so easy these days, and there's so much good information around.
There is.
When I first started this, there really wasn't as much
resources, was there?
helpful videos on YouTube and install guides as there is now. Now it's like, you can do this yourself.
Oh, yeah.
And so I don't really need to do that anymore. You can do it.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. Joe's right. You can do it. Installing Linux is not that hard. And if you need some more encouragement, you think it's too hard to use, my mother, was a teacher for a long time. She will say herself she's not a computer expert. She can use Linux without issue. So if she can do it, you can do it.
My mom uses Linux too.
Exactly. So see, Joe's mom uses it. My mom's using it. You can use it. Okay. Linux is not that hard. So, but that's really our only stories for this week. So we're going to go ahead.
One that you missed, and that's of course the big brouhaha going on now because Linus Torvalds put the bad mouth on ZFS going into the Linux kernel natively.
I did not hear about this.
Causing all kinds of wonderful screaming going on. I agree with him.
So, well, what do you think of ZFS? Oh, go ahead.
He basically said that the code base was still not GPL2 and it was GPL incompatible as far as the licensing was concerned, and he wasn't going to fool with it. And so everybody's going on about that now.
I mean, I got to say, one of the things I don't like about the open source community, if I can be completely honest here, and you may disagree with me on this, the open source licenses, regardless of what open source license, BSD, GPL2, 3, whatever, it's open source. Like, people are fighting over all this. Like, why does it matter? Open source is open source. You're giving the source code to the world and you're letting them use it.
Well, in that case, when you're talking about ZFS, it's actually an Oracle-owned product, and Oracle is it is not necessarily, although it's put out under the, what do they call it, Cuddle CDDL, which is a different kind of license.
Yeah.
And he's more concerned about copyright problems and things like that.
Yeah, I can understand that now.
ZFS itself is something that's only interesting to people who know how it works anyway. To somebody who's just running a regular desktop or a laptop, they won't care. See,
I don't actually think ZFS matters, so it seems like we have the same opinion here. It's like a normal user doesn't need ZFS. So
ext4 is fine.
Exactly.
Stable and robust. There is no reason to worry about ZFS. It's only good for people who know how to use it. That's the thing.
Yeah. And, I run servers on ext4 file systems too, and I don't have any issues with it. I'm sure if you were doing a lot of data transfer, like, say, Netflix or something, you might run into an issue. But at least for the servers I run, it's fine.
It is good for situations where you have anything that you would use a large RAID array for, and that would be like a NAS or a SCAN or something like that. Any kind of storage like that, because it is a volume manager and a file system all together, and you can tune all the aspects of it. And if you run into a ZFS fan, they'll go on forever about how it'll scratch your back and mow your grass and walk your car. But for the, I tested it when Ubuntu, in their kernel, they added the modules, and then they hastily added it in a recent release. And I installed it. I played with it for a couple of days, and I went, okay, this is slower than ext4, and I don't need any of these other features. So we went back to ext4.
Yeah. Anyway. I've only used ZFS very briefly. There was, I forget what the project was. There's an open source project that uses it for, like you were talking about, basically an open source NAS. And I tried it, and I thought, well, this is FreeNAS. That's what it was. Thank you. And FreeNAS, I did try it on FreeNAS, and I mean, it was fine, but like you were saying, it didn't really like scratch my back and mow my lawn. You know, it didn't really do anything that made me.
Like I said, you have to talk to the fans. If somebody who's really into it, it's great, and they can have it as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I mean, that's the beauty of open source. We don't have to use it unless we need it. You know, it's not going to be forced on us.
Whatever you want, go right ahead.
Exactly. So, but I did not know about that. So that was pretty new. Did that just come out today, or when was that?
Yeah, that just popped up today. I have my little. I keep an eye on things. I don't really comment on a whole lot of stuff. I try very hard to avoid community tempests and teacups, because that's what it is. It's just something to talk about. Otherwise, there's nothing else going on in open source right now. Everything's just rolling along.
Yeah.
So if anything like that comes up, all those content creators out there and people writing blog posts and whatever looking for attention, they tend to whoop things up. I try and stay out of that. It's like, okay, because next week it'll be something else. And
exactly.
It doesn't really matter.
Well, I mean, for me, I look at Linux as a tool, and I'm not interested in getting in all the, the infighting and stuff in the group and everything. To me, I
look at Linux as the best thing happening in the world today. It offers
I do too.
People, I'm very much into the ethics of it, and very much into the idea of having freely available technology. And I can get pretty wound up about it, but all of the infighting, as you say, is usually counterproductive. Doesn't do anything for anybody.
And the other thing too is, a lot of this infighting, I don't know if you've noticed this, but at least when I've seen it, it's always about stuff that doesn't even matter. If you ask me, like, you use KDE and I use Gnome, who cares? It's open source software. We're all using the wonderful Linux operating system and the kernel. Who cares what you're using on top of it? It's your system. It's for you. It works.
Find something you like and stick with it. Have fun.
Exactly. The whole point of Linux and open source, if you ask me, is to get a solution that works for you and to give you that power. And if KDE works for you, I personally don't like it. I mean, I'm not going to bash on somebody for liking it. I'm just going to say, hey, not my cup of tea, but I'm glad it's helping you.
I used to, as of maybe 10 years ago and 5 years ago, if you would ask me about KDE, I would have said, I hate it. It's garbage. It's nasty. I don't understand why anybody would ever want to use it. And then they got to a period where a couple years ago, I looked at it again and I actually ran it for a little while. And I was like, okay, I could use this. I can understand why somebody would want to. It's not my choice, but I am nowhere near as much of a KDE hater as I once was. It's like, if you want to go ahead and use KDE, that's fine. You're a sadomasochist, go right ahead, enjoy it. If you want to install Arch Linux one command at a time because you like to type, you go right ahead.
Exactly.
That's kind of my attitude on it. If somebody comes at me with that, what I tend to do is feed it right back to them. If somebody says something snarky to me about a choice I made, I'll kind of give it right back to them. But really, truthfully, it's like most of it's in jest,
Exactly.
You use whatever works for you.
Exactly. And, I got to say, as far as Linux goes, I think it's just such a powerful system. Everybody's got that choice. That's one of the things I love about Linux so much is the choice that it gives you, right? I mean, you have so much choice when it comes to Linux. You can choose your desktop environment, what kernel revision you're on, what exact distro you're using, which does things differently. And, I'm not one of these people that likes Arch, but again, some people, they want to have that much control. I'm more of I want it 90% baked, and I'll, add the roof to the house, so to speak.
No, I mean, I am lazy. I want it done. That's why I focus on things like Ubuntu Mate and Linux Mint and stuff like that. And what we've talked about over the years, I want it easy, a few clicks, and it's set up and ready to rock and roll. I even sometimes bristle at mainline vanilla Ubuntu, even though I use it all over the place, because when I install it, I have to set some things up to make it work.
Yeah,
it's like, but still, I'm as much. I like that drop-in feeling. We just installed this and it's ready to rock and roll.
Yeah, that's actually one thing I liked about Linux Mint was it really felt like it was ready to go out of the box, which, I don't mind building the last 10% of the house, but it so to speak, but it gets old. I would like just to have a system that I can go into and do my work and edit my videos, whatever I need to do, right? And not have to, babysit it.
I know that you wanted to make Linux Mint the main thing, but I really lately, to be quite honest with you, I would rather build the rest of the house in Ubuntu than go with my personally. I'm getting there. For a long, long time, I said, depending on the kind of new user it was, that Linux Mint would be the best way to go. And now with this last release that came out just before Christmas, 19.3, I'm not so sure anymore. I got to be dead honest about it.
Yeah.
I have moved away from it. They have in that project something going, it's a feature creep problem. And they have, they've added, I don't know if you've looked at it, but they've added all of this extra stuff. They've got this user, what do they call it? Not user, it's system reports tool now. It sets up a little nag down in the Cinnamon desktop panel there and tells you all this stuff you're supposed to do. One of the things is they want you to set some sort of a root password, which is very much against the way Ubuntu works.
Yeah.
And I
don't think that's a good idea either.
Yeah, and then there's some other things. I mean, I just don't like the last couple of versions of Cinnamon have hit me the wrong way. And now, honestly, to tell you the truth, if I'm going to be working with somebody directly and it's like a family member or something like that, I put them on Ubuntu. I put them on Ubuntu Mate. That's my favorite for new users right now. But Linux Mint, I'm not saying it's bad because you can turn all that stuff off if you don't want to. Just go in and don't let it boot up.
Well, that's one of the things I liked. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I'm very much about that initial experience.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and see, that's what I'm looking for. That was one of the things that attracted me to Mint was it was already ready to go. But it seems to me like, and me and you seem to have the same kind of concerns, that the feature creep has come in, and I don't like the fact that they've changed some of their policies and stuff. Some of the things that they do, like the root password thing, I just don't like the sound of that. I don't want to run a machine
it's
that's
very
got root.
Confusing. Well, I mean, it depends. The way, I've had several arguments with people since I talked about that in a video, and I've talked about it a couple of places, and I've gotten into these arguments, and this is the same argument's been going on for a long time in the community. Using like Ubuntu, what they do is, for those who don't know, is that you don't actually activate the root account. You create an account that immediately has administrator privileges, and that standard account can act as root. And the point of that is that if I am trying to break into your computer through a network, through SSH, let's say, and I want to gain root access to the machine, if there is no root account, that is an extra hurdle that I would have to go through. In other words, I can never log in as root. Now, that doesn't mean that I couldn't hack into your account if you had sudo privileges, and if I've already gotten to your account, whatever. But still, there's no direct root access. That's the whole point. If you set a root password, you have activated that account, which means it exists. That means if I somehow brute force my way into that account, then I have complete control over the machine.
Yeah.
And that is what the problem is right there. We're usually talking about through networks. However, if you have a machine where the root account is not activated and there is no root password set, then your machine becomes vulnerable to an attack where somebody's sitting down in front of the machine.
Yeah.
And that's the reason, because I can go in now. There's ways to go in and reset all of the passwords on the system if you know how to do it, and you can get in there. I know exactly what they're talking about. But honestly, the chances of that happening as to you being attacked on a network, in my opinion, I think being on a network is much more dangerous than having somebody. If I got your machine, unless you've encrypted every file on it, I got you anyway.
That's what I was about to say. I mean, if you got physical access, it's over.
Yeah, if game's over. But with most people who steal computers, if you're running Linux and you have a password on it that's, Bob123, that's enough to discourage them because they don't know what they're looking at anyway.
Yeah.
And they'll just wipe the drive or part it out or something. I mean, your data's still pretty safe, but still, if I've got access to the machine, game's over.
And if you're using encryption and using a strong password for the login, then you're really not going to have to worry about that. And I'm with you. The networking is way more dangerous, if you ask me. SSH access into a machine is way more attackable.
I think you mentioned that you run servers, and the EzeeLinux server, it's like, people go on about Linux and the security of Linux and that sort of thing, and you get into these debates, and they'll go, well, you need antivirus. No, you don't.
Yeah.
I have a server that runs on the internet. It's EzeeLinux.com. It's sitting out there. You can go look up the IP address right now. And the thing is that people beat on that thing all the time. Every time I log into that server, every time that I log in through SSH, there's a program that tells me about the failed logins, the people that have tried to get in.
Yep.
The last time I looked, I had 18 people trying to hack that server.
Yep.
And it kept a record of it.
Yeah.
And
I see the same thing when I log in too, but they don't get in. They're failed
nobody's
attempts.
Gotten in yet. So I'm not the least bit worried about it,
Neither am I. I mean, I use key authentication. I actually disable password login over SSH, and I think if you do that for all your accounts on the machine, I honestly don't think you got too much to worry about.
Yeah, I do the same thing.
Yeah, so
So it's like, unless you're me, even if I can give you the command SSH that EzeeLinux. Unless you have my
your key, you're not getting
authentication
in.
key, you ain't getting in.
Exactly.
Have fun.
So SSH is very powerful. We can definitely say that one for sure. I love it. It's the best thing ever, if you ask me.
Anyway, the point of it is, just to steer it back to Linux Mint, is that what they're doing is they're trading off one
security issue for another.
And they're confusing the hell out of people.
Yeah, and that's not good.
Ubuntu doesn't do that. And, like if you install Manjaro, you can choose to set or not set a password. It'll give you the option. So at least in the installer, you know what it's doing. And they tell you what it is. But Linux Mint doesn't tell you. It sets up a regular Ubuntu account. They didn't change anything in Ubiquity, which is the installer.
Yep.
And then it comes up and says, oh, by the way, you need to set this password. What password? I don't understand. I'm new to Linux. I don't know the difference between a root and a regular account.
Exactly. I was about to say, they wouldn't know.
Exactly.
So
that doesn't bode well with me.
Yeah. I mean, so it sounds to me like right now I've been thinking it's best to stay on Ubuntu, and it sounds to me that you're advising that's probably for the best.
Well, it depends. Now, I'll tell you why. Because if you've heard this, now you're educated and you know what it is.
Yeah.
And you don't have to worry about it. And one of the things about Linux Mint that's really good that Ubuntu Mate is just about the easiest to get into. They have this lovely welcome screen. As soon as you install it, it takes you on a tour of the system. They give you your updates. They install your driver. They do all that stuff. It's wonderful. And it's all click. There's no terminal involved. You don't have to know any commands, nothing. It's great. And so that's a good way to start, but that's very hands-on. So if you have somebody who is a little bit of a computer nerd, maybe they don't know a lot about Linux, but they like computers and they like to set up their own system and feel like they're in control, that's a great way to go. Linux Mint, on the other hand, the idea behind that still is that you install it, you check one box at install to get your third-party updates or software and drivers and whatnot, and you do that, and then when you're done, you're done. The system is installed, and you have one of everything to make it work. So if you're that kind of user that just wants to sit down and start using it, Linux Mint is still a great way to go. I'm not going to say it's a bad distribution, but
you just need to be aware of the trade-offs.
Yeah. You need to be aware of the trade-offs, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. For me right now, as far as I'm concerned, I mean, the audience probably doesn't care, but I like Ubuntu the way it works. Really, the one thing that makes me want to go to Mint is just the fact that, everything's already there. But I've got, scripts to automate things to set it up for me. So I think for me, it's probably
right.
Yeah.
With Ubuntu, what I did is I figured out every time a new version comes along, I figure out what I need to make it work on my hardware and what software I need. I write a big script and I run it.
Exactly.
So you install it, run the script, it goes and grabs everything, it sets it all up, and I'm putting in configuration, lines and configuration files and everything to do this from this script. It is zero. Like if the computer I'm talking on right now died and it just said, oh, it doesn't work, both drives fried, I've got backups of all the personal data and I can reinstall the operating system in an hour.
Exactly.
Big deal. I'm back up.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I love about Linux. So,
is the fast automation of things, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Bash scripting, your videos over Bash scripting are very informative. If anybody ever needs to learn that, go check out the EzeeLinux channel. Joe does great videos over how to use Bash scripting. But I got to say, that right there is so powerful. I actually learned a little bit of Bash from your videos actually a while back. A couple years ago, I was just getting into it, and I knew some of it. But like the Control L, to clear the screen, I always wondered how you did that. And then you talked about it in a video, and I'm like, oh, now I know how to do this.
Yeah, I figured out by just that was trial and error that if I did something like that I would need to say I did that to make that happen. Yeah. So I became very aware of that was, a teaching aid in and of itself. I try not to do anything that people will go, what do you do? How'd you do that? Some of those, I like those videos, but I think, I've posted a lot of videos on that. I've got 2 series on Bash scripting, and don't like any of them. I think I could have done a better job, but it's such a difficult subject, and it's so intricate, and there's a lot to learn that it's very hard to do in a video, and I have this handicap that I cannot type and talk at the same time. And I can type 60 words a minute if my mouth is shut. But if I'm trying to sit here and talk to you and type at the same time, I'm going to type garbage. And so you'll see that in those videos. I can't help it. It's just the way I am.
Yeah, you do a lot of typos.
Yeah, just and then I have to go back and fix it. But that's part of it though. Is I used to really hate myself over that and go, man, if I could just type. I even thought about getting somebody else to type.
Well, that's one way to do it, I guess.
Yeah, I thought, well, if I get a typist and I write everything down, and like I get my fiance to type, she can type 90 words a minute. It's like if I get her to do it, she's not going to make these mistakes. And then I thought, no, because anybody who's actually doing it, they're going to make those mistakes too.
Yeah.
And if somebody wants to point and laugh, they can point and laugh.
Well, it's very relatable.
Feel better.
It's very relatable,
yeah,
and
exactly.
everybody does typos.
Yes. Yeah. Everybody, well, and like I said, I can, if I'm sitting down and doing it on my computer and I'm going, like doing network maintenance or whatever, I'm going straight through it. But if I have to stop and tell you about it and I have to type it at the same time, it comes down to hunt and peck. It's like, that's where it is. So that's the only thing about those videos I don't like. And there's a few things like that.
Well,
I mean, but they are what they are. Once you turn them loose, they're gone.
Well, I will say this. I actually thought those videos was really good because to me, the main thing that I think matters in those videos, and this is just my opinion, it doesn't mean it's right, but I think it's getting people interested in it and showing them enough that they can get their feet wet. And that's what you did with me. You got me interested in more of the advanced side of Bash, and I was like, oh, this is powerful.
Yeah, the one video that it's the most popular, I mean, it's still on the top 10 on my channel, is Beginner's Guide to the Bash Terminal.
That's the one.
I get all kinds of crap from people all the time going, Bash isn't a terminal. It's like, dude, it's a name it makes it searchable.
Yeah.
If somebody searches Linux terminal, it comes up. If somebody searches Bash, it comes up. That's the whole point.
Yeah, exactly.
But that video, what I tried to do, and I think I actually pulled it off, was in like 45 minutes or an hour, however long that video runs. I wanted to give somebody the absolute basic crap that they would need to know to start navigating. This is what from LS on.
Yeah.
List storage on. That's it's like
exactly.
If you got that, that was the point, and I think that one worked out really well. I think that one did what I wanted it to do, other than the part about the permissions, because I was trying to equate the 7 digits in the permissions to a byte. Yeah. And people go, well, it's not a byte, it's 3 bits per, and they don't understand. It's like, no, it's not an exact thing. I'm equivocating something. I'm trying to get it in somebody's head, they'd understand that. Yeah. Because a byte is 8 bits, but we don't count the 0. The 0 is the 1. So it's 1 through 7. Yeah. And I tried to put that in there. And that just confused the hell out of some people. And the really smart people are the one that went, you're wrong, I don't understand. So that, I could have done that part better. But that video in and of itself, man, every day I get these people who go, thank you, you taught me more in an hour than I learned in, 3 weeks in my college class so far. Yeah. Okay, that one worked.
Yeah, that video was really good. It helped me. I knew basic Bash commands, but when I watched that video, I went from basic to being like, I would say probably lower intermediate, overnight pretty much.
Yeah,
so it was great.
It's because it's really just getting, once you get there and you realize that you can type in man and you can type in help, and if you have access to a browser, any command that you can think of. When I write scripts, and I've written big scripts, I don't know what I'm doing as I'm doing it. What I come up with is a function that I have to do, and then I go look up and see how it's done. Yeah. And I end up copying, pasting the code from somebody else, usually on like Super User or there's a lot of forms.
Stack Overflow, possibly, places like that.
Stack Overflow, anywhere that I can find it. That's where it is. It's like, okay, I want the computer to do this. Let me see how I figure out how I can do it. And that's where I learned. I am not a computer programming genius. I don't even claim to be. But I had some things that I wanted to get the machine to do, and that's how I did it.
And I programmed
those basics. You can do it.
Yeah, I program the same way, whether that be in Python, which is my preferred language, or Bash for simpler stuff. It's the same thing. I think every programmer does that anyway, whether they're writing scripts or full-blown programs. You're Googling things. You don't know exactly how to get everything done. You got to Google it and figure, okay, so this particular way works this way, and whatever.
You'll find full functions, I mean, that's how you do it. It's like, I am...
And API docs and things like that, yeah.
Exactly. One of these days, I want to learn Python. And I keep saying, okay, I'm going to do that. But then my life keeps
I can see a video of...
Well, I tried to follow. Do you ever watch Jay LaCroix? He's got a channel called Learn Linux TV.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, he was one of my big inspirations. He is a guru. He's written books. He knows a lot more. He knows a lot. And I don't agree with everything Jay says, but I really learned a lot from him.
Yeah.
And he did a whole series on Python one time, and I went, hot damn, I'm going to learn how to do this. And I got to about video number 3 and went, I need a book.
Yeah.
I was like, I can't do it this way. I learned from books, and I'm a book reader.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you the way I learned programming. It was purely by accident. What ended up happening was there was a program on GitHub, right? I was looking for open source software to do something. And I don't remember the whole details and everything, but I went on there and I was looking for a program, right? And I found it, but it was buggy and it didn't work right. And so I'm like, how hard can this be? I mean, I ain't wrote code before. This is the naive non-programmer here, of course, talking. How hard can this be, right? Let's just figure it out. Let's debug this. And the thing that I thought was really interesting was maybe it was just beginner's luck, but I figured out the bugs and fixed them within a few minutes. And I was hooked. I'm like, this is cool. I can kind of see how some of this works. And I slowly learned more and more.
I used to program radio automation systems when that was new back in the 90s when we first started having automation systems that ran CD jukeboxes and stuff like that. That was really, I learned computing by panic. Up to that point, I had used Unix and DOS before that. And Unix as a standard user, I'm talking about I didn't know anything about administrating the system. The first radio station that I went to work for, we had a mainframe, and we had terminals all over the building. And this was in the late 80s, and this was a full-on Unix computer. It brought in the wire services and everything, and I had an account on that machine. And they had we had a sysop. And he gave you a password, and you got in there and you did what you did. So I understand a little bit about the system making that work. I mean, I had worked on Unix itself, and then I found myself working at this little radio station where actually I'm doing the night show now, but years ago, and they had this new system called Systemation. Quick Disk Systemation was what it was called, and it ran these banks of Pioneer jukebox CD players. And that's how it worked, because in those days, we didn't have the hard drive space to store audio. We could store commercials and jingles and things like that, but not songs. And I was left alone with this thing for too long, and I started poking at it. And so then I would break something and have to figure out how to fix it. So through the years while I was working in radio, I was doing that. And then I went and worked for Gateway Computer for a while and started to learn about network administration there. And that all kind of, you go back into radio and they go, oh, I see you worked at Gateway and you have what is an MCSC, which is what I had at that time, the Microsoft certificate. And I went, you know about computers? And I said, yeah. And they'd go, oh, that's something that we can get out of you. We'll give you the job if you maintain the networks. So I used to do that. So it was all panic. It wasn't because I knew what I was doing. It was they just said, here, you want the job, you have to do this. Okay.
That's one way to get hired, right? Is just,
exactly.
Can you do this? I'll Google it.
Well, exactly. No, there was no, back in the days before Google, there's a manual.
Yeah,
you bought the thing, a manual came with, there's a book somewhere. Give me the book, I'll take it home.
Oh, yeah. I actually love reading old technical manuals, by the way. It's one of those weird hobbies I have.
I collect them.
Yeah, I've read ones from the 80s, which I'm not even old enough to have been alive in the 80s.
I'll tell you what, if we can, I've got something that will make you smile. And you said you're doing radio. Do you like audio processing equipment?
Of course. Who doesn't?
Okay. I have and our listeners do not care at this point, but I will tell you anyway. I have a directory that I keep of nothing but manuals for like old Orban Optimods and CBS stuff. It's all of the manuals, and I'll send it to you.
Oh, that sounds so cool.
Huge. We'll have to do it over like File Convoy or something like that, because it's like 300 megabytes of manuals in PDF.
Wow.
And I'll send it to you, and you won't talk to anybody for a week.
Folks, that's where I'll be for the next week, is just reading the manuals. Don't mind that. I'll get back to you. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, that's my other love, is that, I don't talk about it much on YouTube, but it's electronics. And I when I went to technical school, I studied to be an engineer. And I'm still studying. I'm still doing it. I tinker with things all the time. And that's something that I'm very much into.
Yeah.
So,
as am I. I tinker with stuff, but you're probably better at it than I am. You actually went to school for. How long did you go for?
I went to radio school for 3 years.
Oh, nice. Yeah, you're definitely over me then.
But on the third year, I switched to programming. I realized at that point that up to the first 2 years, I took mainly engineering. And then at that point, something happened, and I decided that instead of being in it, I realized that I was never going to be one to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and go fix a transmitter in a snowstorm.
Yeah, I don't want to do that either.
And I said, I kind of realized, and I kind of got the bug to do the radio, to do the programming side. I had this vision of being a program director, and so I switched over the last year and just studied programming and news and journalism and stuff like that. And then when I got out, I went to school. I went to work, and then, like I said, that's how it happened. It was like that. I didn't really ever go to college. I just went to technical school and just went to work. And so I've got a lot of certificates and classes I've taken through the years, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But anyway, the thing about it is that that's my first love is radio, records, recording, audio. That's it. Yeah. And then the computers are the other passion.
Yeah. I love radio and computers too. Video production is another joy of mine, but it's that last one I'm still learning. I mean, I'm learning all of them. It's always a learning process. This is the first radio station I've ever ran, and it's been a learning experience. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, well, it's you have to start somewhere.
That's exactly correct. So, yeah, that was a really great story, Joe. And I'm actually remembering your name correctly now. That writing it down thing really worked. I don't even look at the note anymore. I'm able to get it in my head now.
It really does. You know what the key to being a really good disc jockey is?
What's that?
For anybody listening who would care, is don't be afraid to write down a note, because every great disc jockey I've ever known and worked with, and even Wolfman Jack, they carry a pad with them in the studio. They have paper and they write it down. Do not rely on your memory.
Yeah.
Because that's how you do those tight breaks and you get everything correct, is that you write a note for yourself.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah. I've done that before when I do breaks on the station. I'll write sometimes like a little note, like in Gedit or something, just a little note, and just kind of like the general thing I want to talk about, like kind of like a bullet point list.
Today, I mean, I still keep I have a yellow pad and a pen. That's old school.
Yeah. My handwriting is horrible, so that's part of the reason I don't ever write anything.
But I have learned to read. I have my own shorthand that I can actually read. And I remember when I was in management and I used to go to these meetings. We used to have these department meetings, and I'd sit there with a yellow pad and a pen, and I'd be listening to people talk, and I'd write it. And I'd think, and I was like, I'm being so cool. Look at me. I'm taking notes, and I'm paying attention. And I would get it back to my own desk, and I'd set it down, and I'd go, I have no idea. It's complete gibberish. No clue what the hell just happened. I'm glad I paid attention.
You sound like me when I used to write notes when I was in school. I'd write a note, and after my notes for class, I'd be like, I'm going to take notes and keep track of what the teacher's saying. And then after the class, I'd be like, what did I write?
Let me tell you what I did. I had a little Panasonic tape recorder that this was back in the 80s when I was in school. And I had a little Panasonic tape recorder, and I'd used to get these 120-minute cassettes to get an hour on each side.
Yep.
And if it was a class or something that I needed to remember, I'd set that sucker down right on the teacher's desk and go, I'm taking notes.
There you go. That's one way to do it. I guess you could say these days would be
supposed to be talking about Linux.
Yeah, I guess these days you'd be bringing in an audio recorder or something. But yeah, we're supposed to be talking about Linux. Let's talk about snaps, because I think we will have our disagreement on that.
Snaps.
Exactly. Yeah, you said that off the air. So
let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's have our argument. So tell me and the audience, what do you think about snaps, John? I mean, Joe. Sorry. I was doing good there, wasn't I?
Yeah, you almost did it. It was great. I have come to like snaps and appreciate them. I had my doubts for a while as it was developing, but I had an experience the other day where I was actually doing another show. I was a guest on another show, and the guy at the last minute, like I contacted him, like, it was 10 minutes before airtime, and this is live TV, and the guy said, oh, by the way, we're going to be doing Skype. And I thought I was going to be doing phone.
Yeah.
And I don't like Microsoft. And the last time I had Skype installed was probably about 4 or 5 years ago. I just got away from Skype. I was like, I don't need it anymore. I don't use it because they went to that. Remember, they went to that web client for a while. And
The Electron client, yeah.
Yes, and it didn't work very well. So anyway, I told the guy, I said, well, hold on, I will call you back. Is this a good number? He said, yes. And I got down, I put down the phone, and I jumped. Now, I've got 10 minutes to get Skype running. And I went to the Microsoft Skype website, and I didn't want to install Skype, but it was that or just not do the show, you know. So I went ahead and did that, and I went to the website and looked at how you install it on Linux these days. And they had on that page, when you go to install for Linux, it had the code to install the snap.
Yep.
And I went, thank you, Lord, I can do that. It's the least invasive way to do this, and I can get rid of it when I'm done if I don't want it. And so I just, I literally just opened a terminal and looked over, and, I've done snaps enough to know I just do it by sudo snap install, boom, damn, boom, there it was. It was done. And I was like, thank you. And that really made me stop and think. And I've had some other experiences. KDN Live is now on a Snap, which is a video editor.
Yep.
The other thing is the Chromium, Ubuntu decided to start shipping Chromium in a Snap.
Yep,
so even if you install it as apt, it switches
it to Snap. Yeah.
And I've been running that, and it works.
It does.
Works beautifully. And I'm like, okay, they're on to something.
Yep.
So I'm kind of warming up to snaps. I feel better about them than I did at one point. At one point, I was like, okay, we don't, but now I'm like, okay, so why don't you like snaps?
So the reason I don't like snaps, it's one reason, realistically. There's really two, but the main one of them is just kind of a nitpick, and the other's like a real issue, if you ask me. Okay. But I will say they've actually been working on some of the things I'm complaining about. So to be fair, I'm warming up to it a little bit myself. First of all, snaps that don't theme correctly to the OS themes, I don't like that. It takes me out of the experience. And I've noticed,
yes,
yeah, and I've noticed with Ubuntu 18.04, they shipped snap versions of System Manager or I think it was System Manager or something like that. The thing that shows you the stats.
I removed them in a script.
Yeah,
I have a script that like we were talking install scripts,
that removes them.
I actually remove those and replace those with apt packages.
As do I. I actually based my script kind of on yours.
We're on the same page with that one, yes, sir.
Yeah. So, but I went ahead and did that.
We're talking about Ubuntu 18.04.
That's correct. Not 20.04 that's coming out later this year.
Later versions like 19.10, it's not an issue.
Oh, interesting. So I guess in 20.04 that won't be needed anymore.
Well, that's like I said. That's what's making me warm up. Is they did the thing they did it with Chromium. Chromium works beautifully from a snap. There's no problem.
It does. I have been using it.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
The theming is right. Everything does what it's supposed to do, and Skype was it was a skin. It's a Microsoft skin.
Yeah.
But it worked fine. I was like, okay, I can deal with this. And that was on Ubuntu 18.04. It worked fine. So yes, that is a problem, but it's getting better.
It is. And then really the only other issue I have is I like to have control over my machines. I'm big on it's my machine. I should be able to tell it what to do, right? One of the issues I have with the snaps is they will auto update. But I understand why that they want to do that because it's good for security. And I've warmed up to that because the thing is I install updates as soon as they come in anyway. So it's like, I'm really complaining about something that doesn't affect me. So whatever. So,
my thing on that is that, and I felt the same way you do, and to some extent I still do. However, for what I am getting for snaps, I don't care. It's like, okay, like with Chromium, I don't care if it updates. It's great. Please update it. That's fine. I don't have a problem. And I don't care about Skype. But there would be certain things that I probably would care about.
Examples of?
Like
maybe KDN Live.
That's soft. Yeah, well, I don't know about KDN Live because I'm not a KDN Live user.
Yeah.
I just thought it was kind of cool that was, okay, that's a snap now. Because KDN Live is a pain to install. It doesn't matter what operating system you use. There's always hitches to it.
It can.
If they've got it in a snap, great. Maybe that would be a good way to avoid that. So things like that, I guess, the thing is, but certain software, I probably would be like, I want to see that update come in.
Yeah.
And that would be stuff closer to the system, even, like you were mentioning system calculator and stuff like that. I don't think we don't need to snap that.
Yeah.
And the reason why they were doing that, of course, is they're experimenting with the system. They have to have something in a snap. And then there's other things that LibreOffice, for instance. I've had people that say that, I run it from a snap. I don't want every update to LibreOffice as it comes along.
As do I. Same here.
No, I want it to stay kind of stable. If the distribution, if there's a security issue and they patch it, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's actually one of the reasons I used fixed releases is that I know that this piece of software that I totally depend on is going to remain the same. Now, if
Exactly.
I have to upgrade, I have to upgrade. I'll get used to it. But at least it's not going to change on a daily basis. I will know when I upgrade it that, yeah, I'm going to have
And
to
you'll brace
adapt.
for impact, right? You'll do it like
will
if
brace
it's for
for
work,
impact.
you'll wait
It's
on the weekend or something.
Very good way to put it. I will brace for impact. I know this is going to change.
Yeah.
I don't need some update coming, like you said, on a Tuesday, and I need that to do something by noon, and all of a sudden, my features they're moved.
Yeah, or the thing's broke too. That could happen
Or
too.
it's broke.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's broke. Forget it. Yeah.
And I mean, see, for me, I use Linux for work, right? So for me, as a software developer, all my software development I do on Linux, and if it needs a Windows build, I'll build a beautiful Windows VM.
Let me ask you a question about your software development. It's off the subject, but it's interesting.
Sure.
Do you use the standard? What environment are you using to work in? I know you said you were doing Python.
What IDE?
You have special tools. Yeah. What do you need to do that on Linux?
So Python on Linux, it's one of the easiest things if you ask me to do on Linux. You know how Bash works? It's almost exactly the same for Python. So you've got the interpreter, right? You can run that in a command line. In fact, you can actually edit your code in a command line using Nano, which I know you like to use, or at least you used to did.
Still do.
Yeah, same here. I like Nano when I edit something in a command line.
I'm a big gedit fan these days. I like it now.
Gedit's pretty good. For a while, I was editing my code in there, but not having code completion, it slows me down. I mean, so that, and time's money in software development. So preferred.
Oh, absolutely. No, you got to use the tool that's going the quickest for you.
Exactly. But that being said, I mean, gedit's not a bad editor. I use it to like take notes and stuff still all the time.
You ever use Vim?
Oh.
Vi?
No, I hate Vim and Vi. I'm sorry, but I just don't like it.
There's a guy that works on the project who's been, he's in some of my videos. We've done things together, Jeremy O'Connell, who actually built the page and engineered everything. He is the biggest Vi guy on the planet. I have a video on my channel where he teaches you.
I've actually watched it. I couldn't figure it out.
I still looked at him and went, I ain't doing it. But if it works for you, great. Anyway, go on.
That's exactly what I did. I watched the video you were talking about, and I was like, it works for you. I can't. It's great if it works for you, but VI and Vim is not for me. It's not for me.
Okay. Well, the reason why I asked the question is that you're doing this without making major modifications to the system. You haven't got to have to pull in a whole lot of stuff, right?
So it's not too hard. You can do Python development pretty bare bones. It really just depends on your taste. For me, I like code completion and stuff like that. I also do web development. That's really where I want code completion. Python's easy to do without code completion, at least for me. So what I'll edit most of my code in is Atom. If you know the Atom editor, it's an Electron app, unfortunately, but it works all right.
Heard of it.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Unfortunately, it's a GitHub project, and you know who bought GitHub, so, But
well, I have everything I've ever written is on GitHub, and everybody was going, you got to run to GitLab, and I went, GitHub's working. I'm going to stay right here. There's no reason for me to.
Well, I went ahead and registered
my
one.
Stuff once a year. It's like, as long as it's there and people can get it, I don't care. It's okay.
Exactly. Well, part of the problem for me is I work for companies that do open source projects on GitHub, so I need a GitHub account for those.
You gotta have GitHub. Yeah.
But I do have a GitLab account in just to have it, because if for some reason I need it, I want it, to be pre-registered, but I don't really use it much. I got one thing on there. I did a presentation a while back, and I'm like, we'll throw the PDF up there and stuff related to it, but just to test it out. But, GitHub, I mean, it still works. So we'll see if Microsoft eventually messes it up, but it works now. So
we'll see. Exactly. That's my approach. And people have asked me to do videos about Git, and I just sit and I go, I don't know whether I don't think I'm qualified to do that. When I use Git, honestly, and for anybody listening to this who's asked about that or thought about that, I actually have a cheat sheet with the commands on it.
Yeah.
I understand how it works, but I use it so infrequently that I actually pull up this cheat sheet and copy and paste.
Yeah.
And I just don't feel qualified. I'm not a Git expert. It's great. It works. I love it.
Yeah.
it was a revelation. Jeremy dragged me into Git kicking and screaming. He was like, "You've got to learn how to do this. If you're going to be doing these, if you're going to be learning this language and doing these scripts, you've got to put them on GitHub." And I was like, "I don't want to learn nothing new." And he was like, "You got to do it." And that's,
Yeah.
I don't think I'm going to be doing Git videos anytime soon.
Although
I love it.
I mean, I use Git a lot, obviously for work. It's pretty much required to be a programmer these days to have it and use it. But I don't think I would qualify as an expert either. I don't really use a cheat sheet every day, but I'm like you. Sometimes I'm like, well, I have to do this thing I haven't done in 6 months. Let's go look up the cheat sheet. GitHub has a really great cheat sheet on their website, and I would advise people to go look at that. That's a pretty good one.
Well, I mean, these are the commands that I use all the time. I just copied them and pasted them into. That's how I keep up with things. I have a directory on my system called Linux Notes, and all they are is little stubs. And they're like little commands and pieces of scripts and functions and things like that. And, I realize that there's software that does that. But for me, like, what is it called? Wiki something or other that you can install that does that kind of stuff.
I don't remember. I know it's a wiki. It's like a...
Yeah. You can do that. And I'm like, that's too much.
Media Wiki? Is it Media Wiki?
Something like that. I can't remember the name of it because I've had people go, "Oh, you ought to use that." And I'm like, I'm really good with this. Just create a little file and throw it in there. Thank you. It works for me for now.
Well, I mean,
okay.
If I need to do a note for somebody else, a wiki or something is whatever that can be used. But for me, I'm like you. Just, let's just open a text file. I've got a note, like, for example, my software clients. I just have a text file for each client. And I just, open it up. Oh, there's a project for this, put in the notes. It works.
I have this thing, and it's really kind of weird because on the one hand, like the EzeeLinux project, I'm always saying, this is easy, and you just point and click, and it makes it happen, and stuff like that. Whereas during my daily use of the computer, I use the most primitive tools that there could possibly be. I actually create text files. If it's 2 or 3 lines, I will just use cat to do that. I mean, I won't even open an editor. If I transfer files from one computer to another on my network, I'm using SFTP, which is like an ancient tool. And for me, I like those basic talking directly to the computer things. And I've done, it's like, other people go, well, if you just use SSHFS and hook it up with the file manager and just drag and drop. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but I like doing that send put thing.
Yeah.
It's just me. That's the way I do.
I've actually done it. I've actually done it all 3 ways before. And the crazy part is I actually use all 3 ways for different stuff. To get remote code from like another machine, sometimes I'll use the file system, the SSH file system. To move files to servers, I use, the SFTP, and then to just copy a quick file to a VM or something like that, SCP. So I use everything.
I never use SCP anymore because it's too much typing. It's just like too much. But I like SFTP because it puts you in this environment where now you feel like it's kind of more logical to me, and I just kind of like the fact that I go into this other mode where it's secure and it's like I can do that. And then SSHFS if I don't know how much I'm going to be dragging across and what I'm going to be doing. So yeah, I do it the same way. Yeah. So yeah, I just do things primitively. A lot of stuff is just like there's a tool for that. You can point and click. I don't care. I know how to do it. I learned how to do this years ago. That's what I'm going to do.
I mean, everybody has their workflows, and I think that's part of the reason a lot of people won't move to Linux, if you ask me, is the workflows. Because I've talked to so many people where it's like, I get my work done on Windows. They don't like Windows, but they don't want to use Linux because they have to use a different program to do something, and they get it. It can work, but they don't have the time and the schedule to change. And I can understand that because when I started, in work and software development, I was been using Linux already. So for me, it was just, I was like, let's do this as Linuxy as possible. If I have to use a Windows machine, I'll do it. If I have to use a Mac, I'll do it. But those are, not the main system.
I think people misinterpret sometimes. They think that I'm a Linux purist, and I'm not. I have a Windows machine.
Yeah.
I hadn't had one for a long time, and then I got this job, and I had to have one. I had to have one on my desk. It's sitting there. It literally only has on it what I need to do my work.
Yeah.
I put no personal anything on it, and the only way that I can transfer files from my machine to from my Ubuntu, if I'm going to transfer files back and forth between the machines, and I've done it a couple of times, I do it through AWS. I mean, I literally have the app running on the Windows machine that goes into my AWS account. It's cloud storage. I'll throw it up there, wait for it to upload, then pull it down from Ubuntu.
Yeah.
So these machines don't talk to each other. That's
Yeah.
the only way. And so if you got to do what you got to do. Yes, I mean, there are some, I have mixed feelings about that. I used to be this big evangelist, and I used to say, you don't need Windows. But now I'm very like, look, if you have a little bit of time, get a cheap computer and load Linux Mint on it, or any distribution, I don't care, and play with it and break it and start learning, because sooner or later we're all going to have to get off of Windows.
Exactly.
It's coming down the road. I mean, Microsoft is they don't want to deal with Windows. Windows may merge with Linux at some point. It may become a Linux-based system.
I honestly think that's going to happen. Me and one of my friends that also uses Linux, Carmen, he and me both really believe that's going to happen, and so do you. So maybe we'll all be right.
I think, somewhere down. I think they're angling in that direction. I think that's why that they're doing the open source stuff that they're doing. I think it has less to do with embrace and extinguish as much as it is that they're tired of maintaining their own code base, because they're a lone wolf.
Yeah.
I mean, even in the Mac world, it's based on BSD. It's like, and here they are. They're maintaining their own file system, their own kernel, their own everything, and the rest of the entire rest of the world and like most of the internet is just looking at Microsoft going, are you crazy?
Exactly. I mean,
we have open source. Why
reinvent the wheel?
Why are you doing that? You got this whole bunch of community out here that's banging on this stuff, and you just take what you need from it and contribute back, and it's great, and everything they do is proprietary at this point. And they're just from a business point of view, it's an entrenched technology.
Exactly.
And that is the only reason that we're talking about Windows in 2020.
Exactly.
It's entrenched. That's it. It's not offering anybody.
It's just legacy.
New.
It's just legacy.
Exactly.
The software that's on it's on it because it's already there.
Exactly. And it's not offering anything new to anybody. Whereas in the world of Linux, and Linux is propping up Android and Chromebook and IoT and half the 3/4 of the servers on the internet.
Not to mention the internet itself. A lot of the routers, the big iron routers that run the internet, they're running a special version of Red Hat Linux on the Cisco routers.
Exactly.
So Linux is everywhere, but the desktop pretty much.
Exactly. The desktop is the last holdout, and Microsoft doesn't make any money off of it. What they want to do at this point, and rightly so, is sell you an Azure account.
Yeah, because that's where the money is.
That's where the money is in that cloud infrastructure. And what are people running on Azure?
Linux.
Or CentOS.
Or Red Hat. Or Fedora or whatever.
Or Fedora or whatever. They're doing something else. They're not doing... So it's... Yeah, the writing's on the wall. They got to adapt or they're going to go away.
Yeah, exactly. And, I'm not a big fan of Microsoft. But the thing is, and I used to kind of like Apple a little bit, but they... I have my issues with them. But the thing is...
If you would have asked me 10 years ago... Would Apple be a good choice? And if you were a particular kind of user, I would have been like, yeah, okay, you got the money, go ahead, man. But Apple has consistently, over the last 10 years, just screwed their users.
They have,
and it's a constant. Every time they change, it's the artificial end of life. And then the thing is that to upgrade the program, this program that you originally paid $300 for, now we're going to charge you $75 to upgrade.
Yeah.
So Apple's thing is, you want to be in this club, then you better have a platinum card, baby.
Yeah, exactly.
Get it out. That's how this is going to work.
Apple's gear and software, it's expensive, and the video production world, it's very much Windows and Mac centric. They're starting to do some Linuxy things, but like VFX and 3D, for example, 3D animation, Pixar does their animations on Red Hat Linux, if anybody was wondering. So that's, there is Linux out there in creatives, but I wish it was more.
Here's the problem with Apple. Whether you're an Apple fan or not, it makes no difference.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure there's Apple fans out there going, you can't like it. That's fine. I'm not. You use whatever you want. It's okay.
Exactly. It's a tool.
But the thing, Steve Jobs is dead. And Steve Jobs was the heart and soul of that company, and he would not allow them to put out garbage.
Exactly.
He just wouldn't. If he looked at something and said, this doesn't benefit the user, or if there was something, it's gone. Steve Jobs is dead. Since he has taken over, what you are seeing is cheap hardware that is overpriced. They're selling a name. They're resting on their laurels.
Yeah.
And they're trying to get as much money out of the industry as they possibly can. That's what they're doing. And that in the end, that's going to kill them.
I mean, I'm saddened by the way Apple has turned, because I used to care about Apple. To me, they were the non-crazy alternative to Windows before Linux really got to prime time. But at this point, I'm with you. I think for the most part, you got it pretty much right there. Some of their hardware I think is pretty reasonable priced. I've seen some of it compared to like Windows machines being similarly spec'd and not being that far off. But
but I mean,
it just depends on what you're comparing. But
well, the problem that I have with Apple, and the main reason, it's not even the hardware or whatever. You can pay for whatever you want to.
Exactly.
The fact that they'll just stand up and say, okay, we're not supporting this anymore. Goodbye. It's gone.
Yeah, I mean,
whereas
at least Microsoft will tell you.
Gives you a path.
Yeah.
And in Linux, people go, well, you have such short support cycles. I've been using Ubuntu since 2008.
Yeah.
I have yet to. There's maybe one or two packages that have been sunsetted that I now have to compile or get from a PPA or something like that. But I still do with Ubuntu what I was doing with it 5 or 10 years ago, even though we're on the latest version. There's always a path. There's always a way. And even changing distributions may be what you need to do. It's like PC Linux OS, man. PC Linux OS is it's RPM packaging run in apt. And their servers are just like unbelievable. You can look for packages that Ubuntu stopped shipping years ago that are now only in PPA, or you better keep an install.
A dev file or something handy.
It's amazing. It's unbelievable what they do. So there's always an alternative. Because if Ubuntu if Ubuntu said, "Oh, we're closing our doors, support ends in a month, we're not getting any updates, we're done," and I had to do anything, I would convert my whole network over to PC Linux OS tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because if you've ever looked at that one's like one that you go, wow. Okay. And it's it's very old school Linux, but there's always an alternative is what I'm going to say. There's Manjaro. That might be viable. I don't know. I haven't used it in a long time.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the thing is, I think it all comes down to it's just a tool, right? Computers are a tool, and if you have to use Windows, you have to use Windows. But Linux, one of the beautiful things about it is the choice. This all comes back to choice as far as Linux goes, right? You have the choice if a distro goes away to move.
I agree with saying it's a tool to a point.
Yeah.
And where I break away from that is the fact that if you're going to sit me down in front of a Linux machine and you have a Windows machine sitting next to it, and all I have to do is log into Chromium or Google Chrome and look at a web page, I'm going for the Linux machine.
I don't blame you. Same here.
The reason why is because this machine, even though Google themselves don't necessarily respect my privacy, at least the machine itself, I'm not worried about where
the OS respects it.
It's a matter of respecting your privacy. And the other thing is about Linux for me is the fact that it's freely available to anyone who needs to use it. It's very important. There is a paywall. You have to. Well, not really. Windows, you can install a free version these days, so it's not necessarily 100% true. But it's still going to be like, at some point with Windows, as you go along, you're going to have to pay money for something. Yeah. It's always there. Linux, there's always a free alternative. There's always a way to do this for free. Even if you have to go get the code yourself from GitHub
and compile it.
You have to figure out how to compile it.
Yeah.
You can get it.
You have options, right? You have options.
Right.
That was another thing I really have always liked about Linux is you do have the choice of a lot of different software. And, so to speak, there's more than one way to skin a cat, as you've said in your videos before.
Exactly.
And that's very true in Linux.
You know that people have actually come along and said I'm cruel because I mentioned skinning cats? I'm like, dude,
folks,
chill. It's all right.
It's a metaphor. It's not literal.
I know. Hey, I had a guy now this is true, and I can't figure this one out. In some of my videos, I had said the word gobbledygook, and they said that I was racist.
I've never even heard of that in a racist context. Is that really racist?
I just sat there and looked at that comment for a long time and went, huh? Okay, you're deleted. Bye. See you later.
Yeah, I don't know. You get the trolls online sometimes. I mean, I don't believe in racism, and I have never once heard of any racist say that word. In fact, I think you're the only person I've even heard say it at all.
I didn't get it. I didn't know why they thought it was. You know, I didn't know where that came from, and I was sitting there going, "No, it just means garbage, dude."
Yeah,
that's all it means. It's like chill. Everybody's like got an axe to grind these days, and I spend a great deal of time going through comments and deleting people.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, they get right nasty over the weirdest stuff. I mean, it's
they
like
do.
This guy, in the last video I posted, I said something about IoT being garbage. Because most of it is. It's stupid.
Most of it is, yeah.
Do you need a toaster that gets on the internet?
No, that's like the most stupid thing ever.
And this dude posted a comment, which you can't see because it was so laced with profanity that it didn't get through the filters anyway. And he was like calling me all kinds of names and stuff and telling me that I was out of touch and crazy and blah, 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 and that the whole world would be internet connected in 5 years. And he just went on. This went on for like 2 paragraphs. And I was reading this going, wow, you really don't have much to do you?
I was about to say, this sounds like they got a lot of time to write.
A lot of time. Oh, you'd be amazed, man. It's like, I have said that in videos and people go, I don't understand what you're talking about. People will, in a YouTube comment, write a manifesto.
Yeah. I've seen it below videos where I'm like, how do you have this much time to write? I write like maybe a paragraph if I'm like really chatty.
Oh, yeah. If that's in a good day, that's when I have time to talk. I mean, it's like, that's crazy. I think YouTube would be better if it went back to their old 500 character limit and you weren't allowed to use links.
It might not be a bad idea. The links thing, if it wasn't allowed, would at least cut down on the spam, right? So that would at least help a lot.
Oh yeah, no, you wouldn't have to report spam because nobody would want to use it. You know,
exactly.
It's not spam now. But anyway, when I have very strong negative feelings about YouTube right now.
As do I. I have very mixed opinions of it. I would love to actually start my own YouTube if you want. The bandwidth and stuff required is crazy, and the engineering required is crazy. But if I was a millionaire, that's what I would do. I'd go make, Vincent's YouTube, and we would, I'd let all the Linux creators on and stuff. You'd have a channel, places like that, right?
There are those in the community who are championing this LBRY or library.
I know what you're talking about.
And I keep looking at that and I'm going, here's the problem. For me, it's about divided energy. I never, when YouTube came along and they said, oh, you can have multiple channels now. I know many creators who launched other channels and then they realized that doubled their pain.
It does. It does. And I have multiple channels.
And then they stopped doing it. It's like, okay, we're not going to do that anymore. And I just kind of look at all these other ones as being the same way. It's like
you got to set your limits, right?
Here.
You got to set your limits.
There's no revenue stream here. Yep. And so therefore it's like I'm not doing this. I mean, for me, YouTube is I don't do it for money, but the money's there. Yeah. And it's also discoverability. To
me, the discoverability is what matters because you don't have that on anything else.
No, it doesn't exist anywhere else. And if I post something on, and people do that all the time, it's like, well, you use Facebook, man. You should be on Mastodon. Well, Mastodon has come and gone.
Exactly. At least Facebook has people on it. If I post something on Facebook, people actually see it.
I am trying to attract attention to this EzeeLinux project. I go where people are. It's like, why is it in the Linux community is really bad about this. We don't like the mainstream. So what we're going to do is we're going to go set up our own little thing over here in a corner. And it's like you set up a shop in the back of the mall facing the other way where nobody drives.
And without a sign.
And without a sign. And you wonder why nobody shows up. It's like, no, dude, you got to be up front where people can see you.
Exactly.
And I hate Facebook. I mean,
I hate it too. I hate it so much.
My personal Facebook page these days is about 35 people that I know and love. Their family members are really, really close friends, and I don't accept friend requests.
Yeah.
And that is because I keep it very small. And the only reason I maintain it is because Facebook will not allow me to maintain the EzeeLinux Facebook page without a personal account.
Yeah.
So therefore, it's the only way you can do it, which is stupid, and I don't know why they do it that way anyway.
Well,
but they do.
They actually did change that recently because I was looking a while back to start a page for the radio station.
Oh, really?
And they will let you create a business-only account. Now, apparently, people have pestered them enough, so...
Thank God.
But here's the bad news. If you've ever had a regular Facebook account, they won't let you. It has to be, like, you have to be like, I've never used Facebook. It's part of the EULA. So...
Oh, I see you have to start from scratch, so I'm screwed.
Yeah, and so am I. So we're in the same boat.
Well, the other thing is, you know why? Do you know why the YouTube channel is called Joe Collins?
Because you can't change the username?
You can't change it. My YouTube channel is so old, since it's 12 years old. I started it in 2008. It falls under a grandfather policy, and there is no way to migrate it into a new name directly. You would
Yeah.
have to start another channel and do what they call I don't know, it's branding or something.
Yeah.
And I looked at it and I went, well, I do post things on that channel sometimes that aren't Linux. Because at one point I wanted to call the channel EzeeLinux. This was a couple of years ago. And then I said, well, I post some other things every now and again. So that wouldn't be 100% fair. I'll just leave it the way it is.
Yeah.
And that's why it's Joe Collins. And because it has been since, actually, the original name of the channel was Bad Edit Pro.
I remember that.
Years and years and years ago, it's what it started out as. And then they said, oh, you have to use your name. So then I said, oh, what the hell? Go ahead.
Yeah.
And now I can't change it anymore, so it is what it is. So actually, the link to it is still Bad Edit Pro. It's still there. And people sometimes will ask about that, and it's that's the original link. And they say, well, you can do a custom link. And I go, yeah, and that will screw up the entire world. Do you have any idea how many links there are out on the internet to this channel?
Oh,
no,
yeah.
thank you. I leave things alone.
I mean, you don't want to mess with that. That's a lot of viewers that you're going to lose if you change that.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's a lot of people do these things, and they go, oh, you got to jump off of here and you got to do that. No, you want to be successful at doing in media, new media or old media, be consistent. Keep doing the same thing over and over again.
Consistency is the winner.
Exactly. You will do years of nothing. And then one day somebody will turn around and go, hey, I kind of like this guy, and they'll share it, and that will start an effect. And, I realize that there's YouTube people out there with 500,000, 1 million, whatever. But I got 90,000 really hard-won subscribers here.
Yeah.
It's like they're pretty hardcore. They're not going anywhere. They like what I do. So I think that's better to build a community that way anyway than it is to do it on some fluff and then they just go flittering away.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people do that. I mean, this is something my sister owns a marketing company, and I talk to her all the time. She works for big corporations trying to figure out how to do new media marketing with them. And we all sit around and scratch our head and go, what's the best way to do this? We don't know.
Yeah.
And lately in social media, which is a whole nother bag to get into, is that, since 2016, all the nastiness during the election, people have really, really backed away from social media.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to people will write comments, especially when you're talking about Linux, but it's hard to get conversations going.
It is.
Very difficult to do these days. So it's a changing game, and we're all trying to figure it out, I guess is the best way to put it.
I think that's true in computers, media, everything. It's a changing game. It really is. Linux is and media in general, you're just constantly changing things, That's just how it is. But the consistency, I think you got that 100% right. I mean, I have a very small audience, but it's been grown over the years, and I personally subscribe to the Tom Scott opinion, which if you've ever seen his videos, he actually talks about you don't want to go viral because you're a one-hit wonder. That's all anybody wants to see. They never want you to do anything else.
No, I agree. I worked in radio and television for 20 years, standard media, and you just do the same thing. And it's one of the reasons I'm enjoying doing the radio show now. I wasn't on the air I've been on the air for 12 years, is I do the same thing every night. It's the same thing over and over again. I say one time on Survivor, Jeff Probst said, I'm in counseling because I've said the same thing over and over for 15 years. It's consistent. That's what radio.
It's consistency, exactly.
And
people like that.
You do that, but it's easy to do. It's like, for me, that's just announcing. It's just I just throw it out there, and you kind of have to get into that mindset that you're going to, if you're going to blog, if you're going to do anything like that, and you really want to make a dent, you have to do it and keep doing it, and do it when you don't feel like it, and do it when you have nothing to say, and do it when people get in your face and call you names. And
exactly,
you got to keep going. You can't do that. So,
and it's not easy sometimes. Let me tell you, there's been days where I'm like, I need to make a video today. It's supposed to be a video every week, but I don't want to make a video.
No, I'm not doing that this year. I'm not doing that this year. I said no. I'm trying to do. I mean, you're going to be, I don't know. I mean, I can say this and then it might change, but you're going to be lucky if you see a video from me once a month.
Yeah.
I have got so much on my plate right now and so much going on.
Well, I don't promise stuff anymore either.
No, I don't do it anymore. At one point in time, a couple of years ago, I was like, the big thing was have something up once a week and be consistent. Yep. And now at this point, there's so much to choose from, and people are watching so much. They really don't notice if you don't post for 3 weeks. They'll just be like, oh, great. They're not going to unsubscribe for you because you didn't put up content for a week.
Yeah, exactly. So
You see what I mean? It's just not going to happen.
it is. And the other thing too is, some people, it seems like they'll on other channels will get entitled if you don't upload. They'll be like, "How dare you not upload?" It's like, you do realize that I'm a human. I have a life. I don't have to upload every week.
Oh yeah, no. You can get into a major rut with that, and
You can.
This is, I'm doing the best I can over here, and I'm trying to put something up, and
Same here.
of course, I make a lot of people mad anyway because I will comment on comments.
Yeah.
The nastiness that goes on, and I talk about it, and people go, "Ignore the trolls." I'm like, dude, you have no clue.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I mean,
just none.
I mean, until you're in content creation, you don't know.
No, you don't know unless you've sat on the other side of it.
Yeah.
And you get that constant barrage of criticism and well, you said in the video the sky was blue, and
no, it's actually light. It's actually light purple.
It's purple, and there's a couple of puffy white clouds in the world, so therefore you are wrong.
Yeah.
So everything you say, even what we say in this podcast today,
somebody's going to complain about it.
Somebody's going to complain. We don't know what we're talking about. We're idiots.
Yeah, I had a video that I made a while back on the on this video editor called the Olive open source video editor, and it's kind of like a competitor to Kden Live. Really great. I wish it would get to stable. And here's the thing about it. I did a video about it, and I had barely used it. And I tell you in the video, I barely used it. I'm not an expert. I don't claim to be an expert on this, right? I edited like 3 videos in it before I did the video. And somebody commented, you're doing this and this and this wrong. And it was kind of in a smirky mood. I accepted the comment because it was more useful for the most part than smirky, but it was kind of borderline. Like, if they'd been a little more smirky, it would have went to the trash bin.
I delete anything that's just downright nasty, but sometimes if somebody just vehemently disagrees with me, as long as they are well-spoken, and if you make me laugh, you're in.
Yeah. And respectful, right? I mean, being respectful is important too.
Yes, exactly. But if you're being nasty, if you're just nasty to be nasty, you're just going away. Bye-bye. See you later.
Exactly.
But I do post a lot of comments from people who disagree with me because I think that says more about them than it does about me. And
it does.
They can do that. I'll leave them as long as they're not nasty about it. It's perfectly all right.
Yeah.
And I the videos that I really like doing, and I haven't done one in a long time. And I think we're going to do one pretty soon. Because I kind of mentioned in my last video that I might do something about PC Linux OS, is we're going to do an install and poke around video.
I love those videos.
Where at the beginning of the video, I go, look, we're going to sit here for about an hour. We're going to poke at this thing. I'm not going to see stuff. You're going to be pointing at the screen going, you idiot, it's right there. And it's, or I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm going to get things wrong. I did one about MX Linux because everybody was going about MX Linux. MX Linux, you got to check it out, right? MX Linux, by the way, in my opinion, is garbage, but that's another story. But anyway, I did install it, and I went completely through it, and I said, and that video to this day gets responses. People go, and it goes on for like an hour and a half, man. Edited. I'm just going to screw this up. It was so much fun. And, well, let me take that back because now I've pissed somebody off. It's not garbage. It's just, they got work to do.
I mean, there's a lot of different Linux distros that have work to do. Some that I even like, so I can see that. I haven't actually used MX. I have a friend that used it, and I think they actually switched off of it, but they used it for a little bit. But
it's good. It's kind of like my experience with Manjaro. When you first start playing with it, you go, oh, wow, this is really cool. And then after you live with it for about a week or two, you go, I want to do Ubuntu. And you get off of it. It's always been my experience. And the other thing about any distribution that ships with the XFCE desktop and their main focus is the conky on the screen that's showing you the time and what the processors are doing. I got a problem with that. Not the XFCE desktop part, but as they modify it so heavily that it doesn't look anything like XFCE. Just ship the normal XFCE desktop. I can use XFCE. I don't mind it. It's not my favorite, but I can use it. But just give me the regular layout. Thank you. It's just they got so much weirdness in there. That's my thing. I don't want to say it's just garbage because that's bad, but I'm just saying
you don't like their customizations.
No, I don't like the customization, and I don't like that. And then, Manjaro, it's always been stability. It's always been like I could run it for like a week on a laptop and be like, oh, this is really cool. It's doing what I want to do, blah, 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 blah. And then it crashes. And I'm like, oh, never mind.
And to me, that's really better, to me, the stability is like number one. Like, I don't care about anything more than stability. Yes.
Have you run Ubuntu 1910 anywhere?
I think I may have run it in a VM at one point. I'm not sure.
Well, let me tell you what. I switched over to it on my main machine, which is an old Dell, and it's the big machine, 32 gigabytes of RAM. It's got a Samsung Evo SSD in it, the latest 960. I did do that, and that machine, it has never. Well, no, I got to take that back because it actually did it once the other day, but I don't think it was the operating system's fault. It has never crashed. It has never locked up. It has never stopped working. I've had days, I've looked the other day and I was like, had it running consistently without rebooting for like 15 days.
Yeah. I do that with Ubuntu all the time.
Over the holidays, they didn't send down any updates because everybody was on the holidays. And that whole time, and I wasn't paying attention to it anyway. And that Ubuntu 1910 ran the whole time, just going to sleep and me waking it up, never rebooting it, never doing anything, and never had a problem. The stability of the latest Ubuntus are just...
They're good.
1804 too. It's just,
yeah.
It is more stable than Windows. It's more stable than... I've never seen anything more stable.
I haven't either.
The only thing that I saw that was more stable than that I can remember that had that kind of stability, and this is you go, huh, is DOS 6.22 and Windows 3.11.
You know what? I've actually played with those before, even though I'm not old enough to have used them originally.
I am old enough to remember doing that and using that, and those would run for those you could put those machines up and they'd run for months.
DOS. I've used DOSBox and stuff like that. DOS, it wasn't bad. I think I could have been all right using DOS back in the day. Unlike Windows, it was actually somewhat stable, wasn't it?
It could be depending on the hardware. If you had it matched up to the right machine and it was in the right environment, it was okay.
Yeah,
but
you had to babysit it a little bit, didn't you?
You had, it depended. If you some systems just ran and others, the hardware is so much better today than it was 20 years ago. I watch like Linux game, lazy game reviews and stuff like that.
I do too.
On old hardware, and I watch 8-Bit Guy and some.
Yes, the 8-Bit Guy's awesome.
And I just go and I look at those videos and I go, I remember those days. See, I graduated high school in 1989. And so I was there for the entire thing. I was there for the entire computer revolution.
Yep, from start to now.
I remember those machines, and it's like they were hard. They were horrid. Some of them, they weren't stable. They had issues. They had IRQ problems. That it was terrible. And it's so much easier today.
Yeah, well, we're going to have to end the show in a minute. We're already going over time, but I do want to ask you, considering we're talking about old computers, another one of my topics that I like, and you like the 8-Bit Guy, out of all the old computers, 8-Bit computers specifically here, just so I can narrow it down, what do you like the best? I like the C64 the best myself, even though I only used emulators, unfortunately. What about you?
Commodore 64. My mother in her house still has my Commodore 64 that I spent the entire summer of 1983 writing BASIC into.
Wow.
She still has it. And that machine had a printer. I had a printer. I had a data set, so I didn't have a disk drive. I had a cassette, and I had the machine. And that was really the first time that I ever had anything to do with computers, and she still has it. Now,
wow.
I literally only used that for one summer because the next year, my brother bought a Tandy 1000 with DOS on it. And after that, I didn't care.
Wow.
I was that 8-bit was over for me in just like a summer. But yeah, she still has it. So I have fond memories of the 64 and writing pages of BASIC into it. And then, writing a program with a bouncing ball that goes across.
Yeah, I was about to ask you, what did you write? Yeah.
Yeah, that was it.
Wow.
In those days, you could go to the bookstore and buy books
with the code in it.
Computer program with the code in it, and you would type it in.
Now that was open source.
And your friend would have it, And then the other thing is take your data set over to your friend's house and plug it into his machine and copy it, and then bring the tape home.
Yep.
That's what we used to do back in those days, and
I've heard the stories.
Really my first. That was my first contact with actually having a computer in front of me.
So you like me like the C64. You from actually using it, the real one, and me from using the emulators and liking it.
Yeah, no, I actually used it, but I never went back to it after that. It was never. I'm not one of those who. I'm not one of those who wants to sit around and have like Windows 98 machines running in the corner. It's just like, no, that was what it was.
Yeah.
It's gone. Goodbye. See you later. But I do have fond memories of that. The one that I remember, the best the computing experience that I still draw from today was using Unix, because that was big computers. That was real.
That was the big mainframes.
I'm at a terminal. I'm connected to the CBS radio network and UPI and the Virginia News Network and AP. I am connected to the world. This is before the internet.
Yep.
I was like, I know what's going on. Other people don't.
You're in the know, and everybody else has no idea what's going on yet.
Man. Yes.
Yeah. You know what's up.
I will print it and read it and tell other people.
Yes, that's exactly right. You will be the news. You will inform the world.
You know, I will be in the hallway screaming at the printer, going, "Hurry up!
Hurry up, printer! We've got news to air."
Exactly. I got news.
Exactly. Well, Joe, I'm very, very glad that you were able to join us. Hopefully, you'll come back for another episode. I hope the people enjoyed today's episode.
I'll do it again. This was too damn fun.
Well, great. I'm really glad you enjoyed it, because this has been great. This was awesome. Folks, you can find Joe and his work on the EzeeLinux project, which is, I believe, EzeeLinux.com, right, Joe?
EzeeLinux.com. EZEE.
So it's double E, Z as in Zed.
No. It's EZEE Linux.
Oh, okay. It's double E after the Z, not before. Okay.
Right, exactly.
All righty. Well, thanks.
Or all you got to do is just actually Google Joe Collins, and I think I'm about the third person that pops up.
Yep. I do that often when I'm trying to find you. That does work. I think you're the third option. So thank you very much for joining us. Until next week, you've been listening to Open Source Tonight, everybody. This is Vincent and Joe Collins. Thanks so much for listening.